Sup up, I'm Pupplup, and I'm back with another tutorial. I know it's been a while since you guys last heard from me, but I was personally asked for a tutorial on this, and so here we are. This time we're working in Unity, and we're going to be doing all the things you need to do in Unity in order to get an FBX that you finished all the Blender stages of into HS1. So this does include the hierarchical portion that some tutorials suggest for you to set up through the SP3 tool. What we're doing is we're doing that here in Unity for all of our items, as well as we're going to get everything necessary. So all we have to do is edit some very, very minor things in SP3 from the asset bundle that we're going to be making here. Now, before you start, you will need the Build Asset Bundles tool for Unity 5.3.5F from, I believe it's Starlene's clothing tutorial. So you are going to need to familiarize yourself with that. I'm sure if you're at this point you already have. That said, I'm going to now open up my, you can't see this because I'm only showing my Unity screen here. I'm going to open up my file browser, which honestly I should have done to begin with, and grab my FBX that I've recently completed from my modding group. Now this is everything in it for this outfit, and I have it all rigged to the body. So we're not going to be worried about accessory hierarchies. Let me tell you, they are super easy though. So I have my thing here. And before I even put it up in the hierarchy here to show it, the first thing we want to do is change the scale factor. Now, if you remember, when you export from Unity for Honey Select mods, you are going to have it be all the way down to file scale 0.01. That's just how it works for HS1. But right now, because we're going to be able to see our item much better, I'm going to bring this to 100. So now when we drag and drop, we're going to apply those settings, and we can see our item in its full glory. Now, you'll notice it did not automatically populate the textures. At least, it didn't do the job we wanted. So, first things first, the body highlight to see clipping. This is the blue body that we work with in Blender, which is great for watching and seeing clipping, but we don't actually want this. So we're just going to delete it outright. Yes, it is going to make our body this awful shade of missing material pink, but it's just what we gotta deal with. Then I'm going to go back into my file explorer, and I did do this. I did already grab the necessary folder with all of my little files here, and I'm going to grab my various textures. The only thing I'm not grabbing is the emissions textures because they're all pretty much black unless you have an emissions texture, in which case you're gonna need that. And I'm gonna put that into my materials folder. It's loading them in. Woo, yay. Now, chances are this will not be the only materials that we'll be using. You'll notice my method requires a lot of alternate versions of things, but before we get too far, we're also going to grab all of our existing materials, and we want to set the shader to HS standard 2 colors. That's just kind of what I use as the default. Rendering mode opaque for now until we know what we need to be not opaque. Though generally, I think every single one of these textures does use a form of cutout at the very least. And it's not happy, but that's because we don't have the right texture. We'll start with this one because it's so wonky. I believe this is a texture for some kind of lingerie that must have used some of the same coding slots. But we don't want that, so I'm just going to replace the albedo here and the normal map. Make sure that everything's set as the normal map. And we find that more is transparent than we necessarily would have liked. So we are going to duplicate this. And we are going to set the duplicate to fade. And open up. So all of our stuff is here. I have named things. Give me a moment to correct some of this, but I'm also going to put this is technically the specular. We're going to pop that in the specular slot, up the metallic, lower the smoothness. Same for here. It shows off where the color is supposed to be. Now, I will be making this colorable in the end. As you can see, once I drag and drop to the actual skirt portion, it looks a lot more like how it's supposed to. And I can put this albedo into the normal albedo slot, which again gives it a much better look. But in the end, I will be making this colorable. So this is just sort of how I'm doing this for the property, for the tutorial. Going down here to our feet, you notice how terrible they look because they are unposed. This is just the usual. It's how it is. Okay, so for this one, I am using the occlusions as the albedos, by the way. I actually don't know what this necessarily goes to, and I'm also finding that this fade should be on here as well. That made everything go disappeared. So we're gonna change this to fade as it is. Oh, it looks like these are the gems. So to the detail albedo. Yes, these are the gems for the shoe, which if we wanted to get really fancy, I'm sure we could use a glass shader, but that's not the point of this tutorial. So we're gonna hold off on that. We are gonna make these super shiny though, because they're gems. Of course they're gonna be shiny. Okay, this one is the rest of the shoe, which, don't worry, the cutout portion will appear. Pretty. What's nice about doing the material settings and whatnot in Unity is that luckily everything is drag and drop, which is convenient for us. And then I think the last things we need, these last few portions, are going to be the leg ribbons, which, again, we're using the occlusion in the albedo slot. Make sure that it knows that the normal map is a normal map. Grabbing the specular and putting that in the detail albedo section, just to start with. So now we've got our basic materials put on here, which means now we're ready to do our hierarchies. So we have everything in one object here, which means we're going to want to take this whole thing and copy it for how many items we're doing hierarchies for. So the dress will be 1, the shoes will be 2, we're going to put the leg ribbons, both upper and lower, as the same object as a sock. We're going to put the armlet as a glove, mostly because I already weight painted it to the body. No going back now. And we're going to put the neck as a pantyhose object. You'll notice that some things, especially collars that will move more with the body, are in that pantyhose slot. I do the same thing too. So that means we have 5 items we want to do: shoes, dress, sock, glove, pantyhose. So we're gonna Control D, which is duplicate, this whole thing 5 times. But let me back up. Always, 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 we're gonna grab all of our stuff that's moves. Update when off screen. That way, when you scroll in or out, it doesn't disappear on us. I'm also going to layer as Kara. That way, this affects how certain light features will affect it. Because this goes on the character, we want it to be on the character layer. Now we can 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have a total of 5 of these items. I'm going to choose, because we're just going to start with the dress, I'm going to choose to hide the rest of these. We're going to open up this one more time, and you'll see this part that says PCF body top number. This is what in a lot of our tutorials is referred to as the animator name. So when you're naming this, whatever you're going to have it in your files, I often just name it to what I'm going to name it in the end. This is what we want to change. I like to name things after songs I like, so I'm gonna call this with my pup prefix. That way it's easy for people, including me, to search up Aqua Regia, and we're gonna make this the dress. So now our animator is named properly. And we're just gonna hide everything that we are not putting in this particular item. So this is everything that is going on this item, which includes the body. Dresses and anything else in the top compartment will always include the body mesh. So we're going to open this up one more time. And you'll notice CFJ root and CFNO root. So the CFJ root, if we open it up a little bit more, we'll notice that this contains the skeleton of our mesh. So this is all the moving parts. This is the honey select skeleton. We don't want to do anything with that. Our hierarchy goes here at CFNO root, which we're going to open up until we really can't open it up anymore. So I have a handy dandy notebook here in which I have written down all of the nitty gritty bits about the hierarchy, both for clothing and for swimsuits, which the big difference here comes right after CFNO root. So if you're dealing with the swimsuits, it's gonna be N swim is your next stop. But if it's going to be a clothing, N cos. Now, any of the numbers afterwards don't actually matter, as long as it says N, capital N, underscore COS. Then, because this is a top, this is a dress, which goes in the top section because it primarily covers the upper body, we want end top. The entire hierarchy is explained in a chart on Starlene's clothing tutorial. I suggest either making a copy of this or writing it down in a notebook like I did so that you can have it easily on hand for whatever clothing piece you're making. So then we get N top underscore A. So this is important. This is actually where our clothing is going to go. We're just gonna drop it into N top A. This actually we're not going to use, but deleting things in Unity tends to make things messy. So I'm just going to label it empty. That way we don't have phantom bones crop up and mess up all of our stuff in the SB3 section and further on in the gameplay section. So we're just going to label the OBOT whatever empty. And what we want here is just these three pieces. Now, if I had a half state, so I'm just going to duplicate this and name this N top B. If I had a half state, the meshes and the body for the half state would go in N top B. Most other clothing items do not say A and B, only the top does. For all of the other clothing items, you'll notice that the primary wear is D, and the half state is N. So for instance, for pantyhose, the primary wear state is N pantsed D, and the half state then is N pantsed N. Now, for whatever reason, they change it back in the swim section. So for it's N bot A, N bot B, N top A, N top B. As long as you're using the hierarchy guide that was included in Starlene's tutorial, which is always where you should start, because it contains a lot of tips on a lot of other things that I don't cover in my tutorials. My tutorials are a little bit more specific. You'll always get it right. Again, another reason why I suggest you write it down, you print it out, you have it on hand somewhere that isn't, tabbing back and forth constantly from your Unity to whatever you're referencing from. Make sure you have it on hand. But now I've got this, it's got all of the stuff here that I need anyway. So I'm going to go back to my animator name, because this has a skirt, and skirts should move. So when it comes to adding components, like say dynamic bones, you always want to add them to the animator, which is the named portion. So I'm going to add component here. I'm going to add dynamic bone. Now, unfortunately, I'm super lazy. I have a prior item here that I have dynamic bones on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to grab the dynamic bone stuff here that I've got. I'm going to copy component, and then that means I can hide that again. And I'm going to open this up and then paste component values. So now this whole thing will have the same curves that I like to use from my other skirts. When you're first starting out, you're going to do a lot of testing. And you're going to be using this play button and wiggling it back and forth, and using the play button again and wiggling it back and forth, because if you edit things when you have the play button on. They don't save. What I need to do, though, for this, before we can move forward, is I need to make sure that all of these skirt whatevers are pointing to the correct item. Now, I have a lot of stuff here, unfortunately, because I'm dumb. And I still have a lot of these dolls, which I said I was going to work on forever ago. I haven't finished them, forgive me. But I can put SK, and if I remember correctly, all of these things should be called just JSK, and then BAL, FAL, BAR. You only need to do the top bone for the item. Oop. So we're going to JSK, and then, yeah, see? It's BAL. And there are several here because it's going to be the different ones too. I'll show you what it means to test it. So we're going to just have that be that. We're going to press play. It's going to stutter for a moment because it has to do some calculations. We love calculations. Da-da, da-da, da-da. I hope you enjoy the royalty-free music that I have in the background here. They do say to use it with credit, so shout out to Stream Cafe. I'm currently using their 1 hour of comfy and relaxing songs, royalty-free vlog music, as this background music here. And I do hope you are enjoying it as much as I am. It's so cute to have in the background. I figure this is while we're waiting for this to load, this is a good segue into making sure that I give credit where credit is due. And of course, because I navigated away from my Unity while it was loading the play, I'm currently locked out of it. This happens to me a lot because I am an impatient person. Don't worry, as soon as it actually does load, I will have access back to my Unity screen. We love when things don't go exactly as we desire them. I should also take the time to mention now, for things like two-color, I know I'm using a two-color shader, and I said that I wasn't doing a full tutorial on that yet. We're trying to make this a little bit more concise onto the topic that was requested by one of our good friends on the Illusionsoft server, Gru. Not to be mistaken for Guru, just Gru. If having more of a specific two-color tutorial and how to edit textures for that, if that is wanted, be sure to leave a comment. Let me know through Discord or what have you. Because if I don't know that you guys need these tutorials, with my fatigue, they'll never get done. I am a mess as it is. So please let me know what you guys need. You know... Oh, I think we're back in. Yep, we are back into Unity. Let me finish my thought first. Without you guys letting me know that you need these things, it's just a big gray area. I can't know what you guys know or not. Okay, but we're here. The play button works. It is blue, so that means if we move So we can see that it is moving. However, this is not the right bone. So let's try that again. Luckily, it only really throws a fit the first time. And it's a lot faster the second time. Still not the right one. We're just kind of going through the list here. Yes, I realized that it doesn't have a full screen camera. JSK, BAL. Which means back, A, left. Okay, so we can see now that it is indeed moving. We've got some dynamism here. Now, I actually don't like the way that it's moving, so we're going to adjust some of these curves here. So, what these curves do, and there are a million tutorials online for this specific tool beyond just mine, I want to make sure that the bottom of this is less stiff. As you can notice, the curve does go that way. Do we want... Let me try switching that inertia around. There we go. Now you notice the bottom of it moves a lot longer than the top, which is how a real skirt would move. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this component and then we're gonna paste it as new. Now it's still, for every single one of these, it's gonna point back to the same bone. So we need to then try the next one. And I'm actually going to just paste the component as new the full 6 times. That's 1 for each bone, and we're going to test a lot of them at once. Notice we also don't do any of the B's because that is lower down on that bone chain, and we don't need those. So FAL, this one we want to be FAR. And then these last two will be the sides, so it will be SAL and SAR. Okay. Oop. I lost track of it for a moment. So now, like we did before, we're just gonna check the wiggle. And none of those are the right bones. I love this! So we already know the SKBAL is correct. So let's try a different BAR. And then this one is an SKFAL. This one is FA underscore AR. SAL and SAR. There's always going to be a bit of tedium. That's not even the right... That's not even the right object anymore. That's one of the ones from Raindrops. So... Okay. SKBAR. No, that's BBL. Bah. Okay. We can at least tell from some of the lengths. Because, like, this SKBAR is definitely not right, because that's the length of the one from the Raindrops. AL. See, that's more right. which means we're going to skip the one that doesn't have the page mark because that implies that that's from the raindrop one, I think. Go back here. We managed to get 2 more bones right, which means we're, it's B-A... If this one's B-A-L, it's B-A-R that's not right, and F-A-R. S-K-B-A-R. And S-K-F-A-R is not right. Which means we're gonna skip here. And S-K-S-A-L, because that was on the other side. Alright, now this should be good. Okay, so we've got both of the front ones right. We're still missing S-A-L and back right. So it's S-A-L. That's not it. That's... I hope that's it. Nope. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do a trick. I'm gonna move this over. Because we can just undo that. S-K-S. You know, this might have been much smarter for me to do. Okay, that's the right one. Because remember, anything we do while in that play mode does not actually apply. So that includes these things. So, okay. So now I can move the position back to 0. That way it exports correctly when we bundle it. And all of our skirt is moving well. So we've got our dynamic bones done. What else is there to do? I don't actually think. Okay, so more on dynamic bones real quick here. So the damping, if the damping level is higher, it means that it's going to take longer to slow the wiggle, which means I actually want these curves to be whatever. If the elasticity is lower, it will also spring back to its original pose slower. Think of it like a rubber band. If it's more elastic, it's going to snap more. Stiffness is how much effort it's going to take to make it start wiggling. Higher up on the bone chain, you're going to want that to be higher compared to lower, because if you think the end of someone's hair is going to be way more affected by the wind than the top. Same with skirts. The inertia is going to be how long it wants to stay in motion as well. Some of these really do the same things. Radius has to do with colliders and how it's going to interact with the colliders in the program. My best suggestion for you is just to kind of mess around or copy the values from an item in HS1 that is similarly shaped to the one that you're going to do. So for the most part, I want to say this is done. For this particular item, I'm not going to prefab it because, again, I want to do the 2-color whatnot. There are still some edits that I want to do that way. So I'm just going to close this one up and hide it. Which will bring us to our next item, which I'm actually going to work on the shoes because the shoes require some special stuff too. So first of all, the reason why the shoes are special is because shoes have to interact with the ggmod plugin, which means you need to make sure that the end of it ends in _ggmod. So as much as I normally name things what they're going to be named in the end, I'm going to do it slightly different here. I'm going to do pup, and then it's aqua regia shoes _ggmod. So it is gonna be the name. In SV3, we can make the name pretty again, but we need that underscore GG mod for the sake of this item. We're gonna open up our hierarchy again. Remember, it's CFNO root. Because this is in the normal, this is a normal clothing item, this is not a swimsuit, it will still be NCOS, but right after NCOS, we're not using NTOP, we're not using NBOT. We're going to use N under. Now, N under is what you use for anything that isn't a top or a bottom. Then where this says NBOT D, we are going to put N shoes. Again, should make sense. Now that we've got a container for our shoes, we can just directly put our shoes inside here because they are the only thing that's going in here. We don't have any other part of the shoes. We can hide all the rest of this and confirm we have just our shoes left. And that's it. These don't have any dynamic bone components. These don't have any other special things. These would be ready to prefab right now. Similarly, we can keep moving down the line. And for the armlet, which we said we were going to put in the gloves category. We don't need the CFJ root open. So we're going to, the only thing that is part of that is the armlet. So we're going to hide everything else. And COS and under. And then N gloves. And now that we have a container for the armlet, we just drag and drop. Bam! Ready to be prefab, aside from me forgetting to name it. Already. And now we've got 2 more items to do, and I will show you how easy, again, some of the hierarchy stuff is. It really isn't that scary. This is gonna be aqua regia collar. And now the collar does actually have 2 pieces, so we're just gonna hide everything else. Making sure that we have those 2 pieces, the collar and the butterfly. I just wanted the butterfly to be toggleable if people didn't want it, or if they wanted to color it differently. So NCOS, if you remember, we said we were going to put this in our pantyhose slot. So N pantsed. And we actually do have N. If you remember, I said pantyhose has that half state. So N pants D. We're going to just put now this stuff there because I don't actually have a half state for this. It's just going to be the same thing. And then N pants N, and N pants N would be the half state if it existed. Hide, move on. We don't want any of this because all we want is the leg ribbons and the leg butterflies, which are 3 different items in this case. We also don't want the shoes. We said we were going to make these socks. So again, we're going to name them, in this case, Pup Aqua Regia ribbons. It should be obvious that they're leg ribbons because they're going to be in the socks category. And COS. And under. And then N socks. Socks do not have a half state. That is the biggest difference between socks and pantyhose, is that the pantyhose has a half state. So if you need something that has a half state slot, make sure, if it's not going in the top or the bottom or anywhere else, that you use the pantyhose slot to put it in, because otherwise you're not going to have a half state slot to put into it. All right, so now with all of that, these all would be ready to prefab and ready to go. Again, I'm not actually finished with them because I still have to do the 2-color compatibility and some other material settings that I just want to do on my own. However, at this point, you would grab these from where you have your name and drag them down into this region to make a prefab. If you've done previous things in Unity, this and the asset bundling should not be surprising to you. This shouldn't be anything new. I always suggest if you've gotten to this point, you should have done practice in Unity with asset bundling props before and be very familiar with that process, because all of these other things, all of the prior tutorials really do work you up to this point of being able to make clothing like I do. So we'd press build asset bundles, we'd come up with the asset bundle screen, which unfortunately you can't see because my OBS does not, doesn't work well with more than one part of Unity open. Any of the dialog boxes you guys probably haven't seen over the course of this video. Otherwise, you're good. You're good to go. That should have covered everything. If you have any more questions, comments, concerns, ideas on what I can do for a tutorial next, please let me know either in the comments or through Discord if you know me there. All in all, I hope this was another easily understandable tutorial for all of you. Thank you again for all of your support. And I hope that the rest of your day, night, week, month, year, whatever, goes well. Take care, all.